Hi, so I really appreciate everyone who managed to survive until now, and I know that everyone's really ready for the party. So we will be talking about interesting topics today, so hopefully I will not lose your attention. But let's see how it goes. At least, the drinks are coming like literally right after. So my name is Dom. I'm a co-founder of WorkDAO. WorkDAO is the only full-stack employment compensation and tax solution built for Web3. So today I want to share with you a few ideas and hopefully a few hot takes on financial incentives in Web3. We will be talking financial incentives and compensation. We will consider what can go wrong and what happens if things go right. So spoiler alert, contributor compensation, if done right, can really accelerate the mass adoption of Web3 and likely a much more positive dialogue with regulators. So my legal team has asked me to say it that all of the things that I will be saying today are my personal views, but they are based on countless conversations that we are having together with our team, with contributors, with founders, with operators, with lawyers, accountants, and together with the team, we are having those conversations on a daily basis. So I will share a few things that we are learning. So, incentives make the world go round or spin out of control. And as I mentioned before, by incentives, at least in today's context, we will be talking financial incentives and compensation. So the incentives in crypto really depend on the stakeholder. There are financial incentives related to contributors getting paid. And obviously, everyone here, I'm sure, university loves to get paid. There are also incentives for the governments, actually, to go after that money. And that's one of the main reasons why every single government is trying to create that local nexus for every project in whatever jurisdiction they can. Government loves to get paid as well. So Web3, both from the technological standpoint, but also from the regulatory standpoint and from ideological standpoint, really changes how incentives are defined and how they are distributed. That's why we are all here for, right? For that amazing upside that Web3 provides. The problem is that, the redefinition and redistribution of incentives, especially financial incentives, in a space filled with the brightest minds working on some of the most cutting-edge technologies, means that sometimes there is someone who really wants to get involved, and that's usually government. The question is, how do we get financial incentives and compensation right, not only for the contributors and for the organizations, but also for the governments? So Web3 is often described as the next step change in how labor and human capital is organized around the world. But that's great, but we still do have a compensation problem. Too many contributors right now, too many employees working either for Web3 organizations or especially for DAOs are being paid for projects or work without consideration of any legal or regulatory ramifications. And by that, I mean labor laws, employment laws, tax rules, securities compliance. And if we are ever to see the mass adoption of Web3 and the next wave of talent coming into the space, we need to address these challenges head on. And something that I will not cover today, but something that's really important to us as an organization and especially to me personally, is that idea that sometimes it feels like it is a big privilege to work in this space right now. You sometimes have to give up a lot of security that inherently you get if you were working in Web2 because of the great benefits, because of great pay, because of the access to healthcare and social insurance. Some of those things are already in big organizations in Web3, but some of them, or very little, are actually in DAOs. So we will try to address those challenges head on today. So let's see. Let's start with identifying the actual problem. So let's get real. The fundamental premise of organizations in Web3, especially for DAOs, is that they are jurisdictionless. Like, you meet someone at the conference and you ask, like, oh, where are you based? And everyone's like, oh, I live on the internet, or I live in the metaverse. And that's great, but it's not exactly true. In order to fly here, you needed to show your passport, or you needed a visa. And there is a number of those things that you need in a daily life. So DAOs, organizations in Web3, everything we are building here exists on the internet. But contributors are hyper-jurisdictional. They live in specific countries. They must maintain proper residency status. They are required to pay taxes. They must comply with all laws and regulations in whatever country they are staying. And so the problem of DAOs and Web3 is that we are here building a global movement, but contributors come from every corner of the world. And the varying and often changing regulatory rules mean that from organization perspective, it's very difficult to figure out how can you compensate people, how can you hire people, how can you compensate them if every dev or every person on your team comes from different place on the planet. So, the problem becomes especially difficult to solve when we are starting to talk about taxes. The tax implications of compensation is actually what makes it all tricky. So I see everyone's expression here, and I know that, again, I know that you're waiting for the drinks, and taxes is the last thing you want to think about. But, the word tax is that one of the very few words that make all people really actually bond over the shared anxiety and pain and no one wants to think about taxes, no one wants to deal with taxes, and yet we all have to. And the end of the year is coming, so probably it's time to rekindle your relationship with your tax accountant. Well, anyway, the point is that taxes are really complex. Even if you lose money or don't make money at all, taxes are complex. They are slightly more complex if you actually do make money. And they are magnitudes more complex if you make money and that money is in crypto and, in, let's say, fiat, stables, some tokens, some equity, that just becomes extremely difficult to navigate as an end contributor, but also as an organization that compensates people in those ways. So what happens if you face these problems and actually don't get it right? Well, there are no ways of escaping complex regulatory regimes. And I know that there are some people on the run, but very few people can stay on the run forever, right? Even being a DAO, even if you choose not to have a legal entity, or you are an anon contributor, it doesn't mean that you are above the regulatory regime. Actually, arguably, abstaining from choosing a jurisdiction might mean that you are creating an incentive for the governments, a lot of different governments actually, to find a path to construct that local nexus, to prove that there is a link between your on-chain activity and the local jurisdiction and the local jurisdictional oversight over those activities. So what's the shortest path for the regulators to establish oversight? It's finding endpoints. It's finding contributors. We have seen this with OFAC going after Tornado Cash. We have seen this with a number of ongoing litigations for Terra. And then the CFTC going after OkiDAO last week. So even if we are actually trying to get it right, let's say that you, as an organization, are building internal team to really, you hire accountants, you hire lawyers. Well, that means that every organization has to do it on their own. The practical cost of employment and compensation compliance and tax compliance for each organization in Web3 can be actually prohibitive for smaller projects. It would require creating entities in every single country where you want to hire someone. It would mean creating actual payroll system that is able to handle stables and tokens. It would mean engaging in cumbersome KYC processes, again, in every single jurisdiction. And the list of those things that you would have to do goes on and on and on. Well, anyway, paying accountants and lawyers, probably the hottest jobs in crypto right now. That can be one way, but there must be another way. So one thing that I want to touch on before I tell you what we do at WorkDAO is that a lot of people don't realize that you can't do the employment piece or the compensation piece without the other. So what I mean by that, you cannot divorce the paying people for the contributions they are making without actually formalizing the work or employment agreement they are having. too often we are seeing contributors being compensated wallet to wallet with no consideration for the regulatory regime of where they live. So employment laws, tax laws, and so on. So if we want to get Web3 to the point where it's truly adopted at scale, and there is a new wave of talent coming into this space, and people who actually are able to make that bridge from Web2 to Web3, it means that we need to mature. We need to mature when it comes to the systems and processes that we are putting in place around formal employment, formal work, and formal compensation. And so that's exactly what we are doing at WorkDAO. So WorkDAO is building full-stack employment, compensation, and tax services designed specifically for Web3. So Web3 is global. Contributors come from every corner of the planet. And that's why we are building a global solution. So WorkDAO enables DAOs and Web3 organizations to legally employ and compensate contributors anywhere in the world in whatever asset or whatever currency is agreed upon. So that includes fiat, that includes stables, it also includes tokens. So all with full employment compensation and tax compliance in every country. Our services are also designed to provide a really great contributor experience, because actually what we are seeing is that the experiences, the problems of contributors are very different sometimes from the problems and challenges faced by organizations and DAOs in the space. So we want to make sure that everyone's okay. And so how does it work? So without boring you with all the details, we start with onboarding the contributor onto WorkDAO. That means that we are becoming a formal employer for the contributor. We are ensuring that everyone's employed legally in whatever country they are based. So that's the employment part that's done. So now we are moving to the tax part. So when organization sends us fund, the end organization for whom the contributor is working for, we are using our proprietary token tax engine to calculate the tax obligation of that contributor for the entirety of their compensation. So we send part to the government for the purposes of tax withholding, and the rest of the funds to the contributor. So that's the tax part. Okay, done. It's unbelievably more complex, but it gives you the rough idea of what we do. So at WorkDAO, we are focusing on problems that really matter. We want to make sure there is more and more people who can come to the space and contribute, that there is more organization that can more easily operate, that there is less administrative and operational burden that currently founders or people on the teams have to deal with. So Web3 really provides an opportunity to reimagine the future of work. And the future of work should be not based on replicating past mistakes. It should be taking what was great in something that we've built for so long, best practices, and apply it and really elevate it to a new level. So that's what we are trying to do at WorkDAO. We really want the ecosystem to flourish, and we think that the need for the maturity of the ecosystem from operational and legal perspective is really needed. So that's what we are working on. If this is something that resonates with you, if you are someone that loves to talk about taxes, if there is someone who loves to talk about legal stuff and all those operationally heavy problems, please get in touch. If you don't like to talk about taxes and never want to talk about taxes again, also get in touch. If you want to talk to me, I will stay around to hang out. Probably we can get a drink as well. But if you prefer to be an internet friend, you can hit me up there and we can chat online as well. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate that you guys stayed. Thanks.